Welcome to a special edition of Directions, AT&T's all-employee video magazine. In this edition, we'll pay a special tribute to the late Jim Olson, who lived out the classic American success story.
And James Olson, who started work cleaning manholes and rose to become the chairman of AT&T, has died of cancer. He was 62.
He began his telephone company career as a splicer's helper in Grand Forks, North Dakota in 1943.
He was credited with leading AT&T out of the problems that followed the breakup of the Bell system. In 20 months as chairman, Olson vastly improved the company's financial performance.
As a result of that move, AT&T's earnings last year reached their highest point since the breakup of the Bell system.
The news of Jim Olson's death from cancer came suddenly on Monday, April 18th. 2 days later, at the annual shareholders meeting in Denver, newly elected Chairman Bob Allen led employees and share owners in silent tribute.
And even though silence was not Jim's style, I'd like to ask all of you now to pay tribute to Jim Olson with a moment of silence.
Across the country, company flags at half-staff bore solemn witness to the passing of AT&T's chief executive. After the memorial service, a reception was held at AT&T corporate headquarters. Family and friends remembered Jim with affection and humor, like Bob Allen's story about Jim's tendency to mix metaphors.
This had to do with a possible pronouncement that was going to come out of our Office of the Chairman meeting, and he was likening it to an announcement about the new Pope, or at least he was trying to. And what he said was the following: "If that happens, one puff from the Sistine Chapel will go down in smoke."
It was from humble beginnings that James Elias Olson would rise to head one of America's largest corporations. He was born in December 1925 in the little town of Devil's Lake, North Dakota. A child of the Great Plains, he carried with him the pioneer virtues bred in that hard country. His father was a barber, his mother a school teacher. They told him, "What you accomplish in life is a direct result of what you are willing to do." In the early 40s, the family moved to Grand Forks. It was there in 1943 that 17-year-old Jim Olson began his AT&T career. A part-time summer job with Northwestern Bell, Jim was assigned to clean out telephone manholes. Years later, Jim would wryly recall, "Some people learn their business from the ground up. I started from below ground." After graduating from high school, 18-year-old Jim Olson enlisted in the Army Air Corps. He served 2.5 years and was discharged as a corporal. In 1946, Jim was accepted at the University of North Dakota. He worked his way through college with a part-time job at Northwestern Bell. Upon graduation, Jim accepted a position with Northwestern Bell as manager of operator services. Co-worker Harry Holmes remembers Jim as a young second-level manager who wouldn't hesitate to fight for his ideas.
After an hour or so of discussing and maybe arguing as much as discussing, Jim jumps up and pounds the table, and he says, "Damn it, Wayne, we've got to do this." And we eventually did it. But that was a little unusual for a new second-level traffic man to jump up and pound the table in front of the general traffic manager. But Jim pulled it off, and he was a bottom-line man, and he knew that change would save the company money and improve his results, so he was going to get it done, and he did.
Transferred to Ottumwa, Iowa, Jim met his future wife, Jean, who trained operators. They married in 1955. By 1966, Jim was vice president and general manager for Northwestern Bell in Des Moines, Iowa. Speechwriter Rob Robinson remembers his former boss's leadership on affirmative action.
Jim felt very strongly about that, and that was even before the company had a formal policy, that we were really going to do everything we can to attract blacks and minorities and women into our business.
let me give you now my good friend and counselor, the president of Illinois Bell Telephone Company, Jim Olson.
In 1974, Jim Olson succeeded Charles Brown as president of Illinois Bell. In 1977, he moved to New York as executive vice president for AT&T, and 9 years later, he once again succeeded Charles Brown, this time as chairman and chief executive officer.
Here's the right choice for AT&T, Jim Olson.
Thank you, Charlie. And
at age 60, after 43 years with the company, Jim Olson would face his greatest challenge to take post-divestiture AT&T from regulated monopoly to aggressive competitor. Jim moved decisively. He set ambitious goals and campaigned to get his employees to buy into a plan that called for massive reorganization and cost reductions.
We must be profitable. But to succeed, AT&T also needs the commitment, the skill, and the plain hard work of men and women throughout the company. Only with your support, only with everybody pulling together, will we achieve our goals. And only then will AT&T be a winner.
Jim brought some enthusiasm. He brought some spirit and a sense of direction that I think really caused all of the people in the business to rally around a common cause and a common vision, and begin to move the new AT&T forward in a very positive direction.
Only 17 months into his chairmanship, Business Week featured a story on the comeback of AT&T with Jim on the cover. He had accomplished much. He had cut costs by $1 billion and reduced the workforce by a painful but necessary 27,000 employees. His single enterprise strategy was remaking AT&T into a leaner, responsive, and above all, unified organization. Once again, AT&T was a team.
I wish this picture had 300,000 employees on the cover, because you made it happen. You ought to feel good about it.
He was a manager who intensely cared about everybody who worked with him. He cared about who they were. He cared about what their aspirations were. He cared about how he related to them. But behind that was a manager who knew the essence of managing, and that was that you ought to have a program, and commit to that program. You ought to have points along the way where you could assure yourself that you were on track and be able to articulate that to him. It was probably management by objective in the very finest sense.
When Jim died just 2 days before the 103rd annual shareholders meeting, he had already made provisions for a smooth transition of power. His personal choice to succeed him, Robert Allen, was unanimously elected chairman and chief executive officer.
Thank you, Raleigh. This is a bittersweet moment for me. I'm indeed gratified by the confidence of the directors and the confidence they've shown in me, but I sincerely wish it were under different circumstances. With the 300,000 members of AT&T team, we will carry out the legacy that Jim left us all.
In his address to employees and shareholders, Bob Allen made it clear that he would continue the momentum begun under Jim Olson's leadership.
We have urgent work to do. No business can survive in today's global marketplace, much less prosper, unless its costs are relentlessly controlled and competitive. We made breakthrough progress on lowering our cost in 1987, and that's a continuing imperative. But equally true, no business can live by cost reduction alone. It must grow. And there's no way to command growth in the marketplace. You must win it. You must earn it. And you win it and you earn it by outperforming the competition in meeting customers' needs. We are determined to do exactly that.
In just 20 months, Jim Olson whipped AT&T into competitive shape faster than analysts, competitors, or anyone else expected. It was a fitting culmination to a classic American success story.
Summer day that slow I promised Dad that I would encourage everyone who knows him to not sit around and mourn for him, mostly because there's so much left of Jim Olson that is still here with us. The legacy he has left with AT&T is certainly among his proudest accomplishments.
In his business and at home, what he cared about most were people. As he said at his 60th birthday, when amazingly we pulled off a surprise party, family and friends, that's what's really important.
Jim taught me about time and making the most of the time which is mine. Jim taught me about life and about courage and about optimism. Jim Olson taught me about leadership and what it means to be a leader.
Today, AT&T once again borders on greatness. And from the outside looking in, you can feel it. And I guess I would attribute it in part to the influence of Jim's personality